All right, Victor, nice to have you here. Um, Today we'll be diving into some topics I think that both have our interest, namely funding, and especially funding ecosystems. Um, we're both involved with coherence, and we're very excited of bringing projects together in conversation, um, particularly working on collaborative technology, but also with this longer term vision of funding, bringing in funding into ecosystems. And you recently invited me to have a conversation about also the fundraiser for Paradise that I have been playing with and sharing about, with the goal of raising 1 billion euro. Um, as a big aim and a way to dream big. um, and so, yeah, today we're having a conversation to explore that, but also exploring your visions around the venture family as well as the 1 billion DAO idea. And I think in a way it's all connected. So yeah, maybe I'll just pass the ball and hear from you. What's your key curiosity that you'd like to explore today?
So I think, yeah, for me, I like this 1 billion. You have 1 billion. I have 1 billion on our roadmaps. So I think exploring this idea, not just fundraising, but how do we create the big vision and how do we rally uh, people, resources around a big vision? Because that's what excited me about what you said, because I'm also starting to really think that the time has come and we are ready to put out a big vision into the world, right? I'm not saying that all of the solutions and all of the ideas are out there, but there is enough that we need a good number of people to focus on the doing, not the theorizing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I think what's the challenge here, and I think this is something that we share as something we're exploring, is like how to bridge the big vision with also the grassroots and the participatory elements. I think the gathering is a great example of like how can you distribute participation, and I think also when it comes to bringing in bigger resources for a bigger vision, it's important that it's participatory, that we kind of equal the playing field, and that all stakeholders are being invited to the table and can become part of whatever we're creating. And I think we're at a time that it's becoming more and more clear that yeah, we're having big challenges, big crises that we face as humanity, and something needs to change, and we're all being invited to take our part. No one really has all the answers, and we have to figure it out together. And we need to create, I think, experimentatory playgrounds for how to solve these challenges, and also how to involve funding. And I don't know. I also feel like somehow equaling the playing field, where it's not that money has the power, which still kind of is how the world is run, and also the fundraising story. The people with the money typically have the power, but also how can we hand over that power of allocating and distributing resources more to the people that actually know where these resources are most needed and can do the most good. That's something that's very alive with me. Also, when I think about designing a fundraiser for Paradise and this regenerative paradigm, and let's say we would raise 1 billion euro, how will we actually distribute it and allocate it in a way that it has most impact?
Yes, and I think, uh, yeah, I mean, we need to hang out with more rich people, with people who have the big money. But whilst if you don't have the big money, it feels like they have the power. Certainly, there is some economic freedom, but there's also a burden, right? If you have a conscience and if you have a few thousand, a few 100,000, you're like, I do my best, I recycle that. If you have a few billion, right, you're like, shit, I can really make a difference. right? I actually have a responsibility, right? Because my money profoundly affects what happens in the world. So power, yes, but also responsibility. And it comes with, I imagine for many people, a certain kind of heaviness, right? Or if you come from intergenerational wealth, right? Like, okay, my parents, my grandparents, whatever made this, right? I would like to not lose it, not fuck it up, right? It's not so easy living in the shadow of great ancestors. So I think there is a degree of we overestimate how free and powerful the people with money are. Just because you can hop on a plane and go anywhere, like, I mean, how many times do you do that before it just becomes tiring and annoying and you're sick of airplane food, right? So creating this story which excites everybody, and I'm thinking out loud as I talk about this, but creating a story which engages everybody and creates a sense of unity, right? Whether I'm doing a small permaculture project and digging and making my neighborhood better, or whether I'm deploying hundreds or millions or billions of wealth to make, systemic large scale impact, can we create a story which makes both sides feel united?
Yes. Yeah, I like that way of thinking, and something that has dawned on me in recent months is also this kind of notion that we need each other. Like we need everyone, you know? It's not just the pioneers, but we also need the people with a lot of money. And I think, like you're saying, it's not just all easy to have a lot of money. I think it comes with challenges. And I think um, these people are also looking for a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, belonging, and they also want to participate in this change. And I also don't have a lot of connections to this kind of audience, so there's also a curiosity to connect more with that crowd and to understand what's alive there and what moves them, because indeed I think there is a bridge to be built and a narrative to be created that brings all these different pieces together.
I think generally there's a lot of loneliness up top. And I haven't hung out with much people, but I read here and there. And once you become super wealthy, you're always on guard because you never know if the person is being nice to you
Mm,
because they like you as a human being or because they're
yes,
trying to extract some economic, right? And you become surrounded by people that are trying to screw you in one way or another. Eh,
yeah.
and then also, living alone in a palace, you're
Hmm.
further away from people. So everybody has challenges. Being human means you're struggling a good chunk of the time, you're struggling in one way or another. And definitely we're all on the same planet. As I've been playing with this one planet, one team
Hmm.
idea, but we need the narrative and the story that really enables us to feel this, and it enables everybody to feel and recognize that they're worthy in whatever part of the story that they're playing.
Hmm.
So maybe let's kick off. Let's go into concrete. Tell me your 1 billion idea.
Yeah, well, one reflection here is indeed, I think there is a big question of trust, and indeed, many wealthy individuals, I think for them it's hard to know like who to trust. They want to participate, they want to contribute to this systemic change, but they also don't know exactly where and how and who to trust. And for this reason of being wealthy and not knowing who to trust, you also see a lot of wealthy people connecting with wealthy people because that's kind of their safe space. And I think it's really the invitation to create this safe space where these different worlds can meet and become connected and start solving the problems of our time together. Um, and regarding the 1 billion fundraiser, well, I think, for me, what has been the seed for that is my work in the last years as a network weaver and basically scouting and connecting projects that are on the forefront of regenerative change, systems change, planetary regeneration, basically, and creating the foundation and infrastructure for making that happen, just like you're doing. And the size of the portfolio of projects and people I'm connected to, like that's easily 1 billion euro. Like I could deploy 1 billion euro easily, and I think it has a very good chance of actually catalyzing the systems change and creating the path forward towards a regenerative society, or what I like to talk about, paradise on Earth. And um, and so this kind of way of thinking in terms of billions, it got reactivated recently by a post someone shared with this question: if you had 1 billion euro today, how would you invest it? And that kind of sparked again this direction of thinking, and I actually made this portfolio, and and then there's the question, and it felt so good to be able to give that amount of resources towards these projects, and that made me think, okay, how can we actually start doing this? How can we create these pathways that make sense for all the different stakeholders, and especially the bridge towards the people with bigger funds? And I don't have all the answers here yet, but I am starting to think in a direction that I think is very interesting. So if you're open to it, I can share something that's a bit on the cutting edge, and I'm very curious to explore that with you. So I think one of the challenges when it comes to, especially, let's say, philanthropy, is that it's kind of stuck in this boring reporting thing with different projects being funded, and I mean they need to apply and then they get funded, and there's this reporting mechanic. But I feel there is innovation required there in terms of how we track impact, how we measure impact, and I feel it is really about relationships and about embodiment and about the stories that we generate. And so I was thinking in terms of this idea, what if you bring let's say there's a portfolio of projects and people that get funded in whatever shape or form. Maybe it starts with a basic income or something, or regenerative income, whatever you want to call it, and maybe there's more funding available to actually flow into larger development of the projects that are in this portfolio. What if you bring these people together in circles? I feel circles of 6 people is quite powerful, and that's basically a place where they can share updates, they can share stories, they can share challenges, and also the learnings and the impact that they make, as a way to kind of harvest also what this funding is doing. And I think actually part of these circles can be the funders themselves, so that they can see what is happening with the funding. Over time, this could be also a place where, yeah, a vehicle that can actually start stewarding resources, and they together allocate where these resources go. It can be going to these individuals, but they can also allocate it towards projects. It can go into an investment fund. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there that still has some question marks. But I do feel that as a core element, I think is quite powerful, and especially if you connect it to AI, like what we're aiming to do with coherence, and we can kind of harvest all that learning into collective intelligence that becomes accessible for the whole network, and you build this commons of knowledge and regenerative practices, which I think this can basically become the infrastructure also for feeding the hive vision that I'm stewarding, and that's connected to coherence. I think it's a great way to kind of harvest all this collective intelligence on regenerative pioneering that everyone can learn from, and make this accessible to both the participants, but also publicly for the whole world. Um, yeah, and so I'll pause in a second and then I'll let you reflect. And it's very interesting because I had this idea a few days ago, and then the day after I found this guy on LinkedIn and he's pioneering something he called participatory learning networks. And I still have to dive into it. I'm speaking to him tomorrow, but I'm like, oh, that's very interesting because that kind of captures the essence of what I see here as a way of building shared learning and transformation and yeah, harvesting these insights so that as a collective we can grow and transform quicker. But then, in my perspective, that would also be connected to this funding dynamic. So I'll be exploring with that with him next week. But I'm very curious to hear your first reflections on this.
Uh, so actually, a small note of vocabulary, because I realized I had a negative emotional reaction when you said harvesting collective intelligence. And I explored that, and I think what we need to think about is cultivating collective intelligence and to really think about this loop of how it, not just like we throw stuff at AI throws stuff back at us, we're harvested and we're done, but how do we create a loop where this collective intelligence increases. And it's a sunny side fun thing, right? I'm not uh, but it's an interesting way of how do we think, right? Because we want to grow and cultivate this field of collective intelligence. And we're still learning how to work with AI, because I definitely agree. And that's where I like the coherence up and coming tagline of humans and AI wiser together.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really great conversation yesterday with, she's in Toronto, I get to meet her, but she studied with John Vervaeke, and she was like, oh, are you familiar with John Vervaeke?
Well, not really, but this guy Paul Barnett from these participatory learning networks, he was also talking about him. So
Well,
it's interesting that he's coming up with you.
I will just say that I think John Vervaeke is the wisest human being alive right now and
Okay.
biggest philosopher that exists today. Uh, I'll drop you my playlist of him. But anyways, one of the things that he talks about is the difference between intelligence and wisdom. And she was like, "Oh, wise AI? Can AI be wise?" And I'm like, "Ha!" Because I put that in as a provocation, and it's actually a test. Do you catch this as actually being a potentially radical and a provocative statement? Right? Can AI be wise? Can humans and AIs be wise together? I don't know, but I think it's something we should strive for. And that's where how do we create this loop so that the collective intelligence, we become wiser and wiser together. Uh, so I think yes, definitely. I think this is something that we are agreed on, that weaving in AI supported collective intelligence will have to be a key part of it. I have a feeling, so my thesis is that the only way that the regenerative way will win is by being through sheer systems competition of being more effective than the legacy systems. And whilst the legacy systems of consumer capitalism, fiat money, blah blah blah, all of that stuff, they're brutally efficient, they're not effective at a human level because they burn the crap out of humans, right?
Yes. And
We
nature.
see all of these, and nature too, but humans are breaking faster. Nature is breaking slower, but it's also breaking, and nature breaking is leading to humans breaking. So I believe that we will win because we'll be more effective, not because we're nicer or more kumbaya or we're like we love each other more. No, it's just going to be more effective to create organizations where humans don't turn their lives into shit and then burn out, right? because it's not very good in the long run to burn out your employees. Uh, and I think for that to be systemic, we really need to be much better at collaboration than the existing legacy systems. And the economy, what is money? It's a medium of facilitating collaboration, right? It's there to facilitate so we can get stuff done together. But if it's, and it's great for certain aspects of that, right? If I need to buy a truck full of sand from somebody I've never seen before, great, sand is sand, da da da, truck full, here's easy, right? If I'm trying to have a babysitter or some kind of a relationship, something like our collaboration here, the relational part is much more important than the financial, to the point where we haven't gotten our finances going yet, but we will get there. Uh, so in the regenerative world, by recognizing and being much better at working with other ways of value exchange, relational and others, I believe will become much better at collaborating at ecosystem scale. And both of these beliefs is what drives the gathering and coherence, right? Is that we can out collaborate the legacy systems. But for that, we do need the AI supporting us. And one key reason why I believe we can out collaborate the legacy systems is because we have a shared purpose and we're open. Our collective intelligence, once we get it up, will be able to run at the scale of millions of actors. A corporation is not going to bare its guts to the world because its default is closed, right? Like you'll have a struggle in the big corporations to let the departments know about what the others are doing. Whilst we'll be running collective intelligence on the insides of thousands, millions, eventually hundreds of millions of aligned organizations, and we'll be able to create best practices and islands of coherence and all of this across millions of actors. And thus, by being open, we'll be able to do collective intelligence exponentially better than legacy systems. So that's kind of how I see the future going. And that's why coherence and Hive as onboarding ramps onto this are really, really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I fully resonate. Um, and maybe just a nuance to add. I think indeed, yes, we can like outcompete the existing systems by collaboration. I think I think also there's simply the fact that I think the outdated systems that we're still running on are collapsing, and they're not equipped to live up to the world that we live in, and the fact that we're already reaching the end of the resources that the earth can supply. I think it is collapsing and imploding, and I think what's needed is to create systems that are more resilient, because those are the ones that will simply be the only ones that have a viability in this world. And I think indeed to build resilience, we need to have alternative ways of sharing resources, like you're also pointing towards. So I think it's going to be a whole blend of elements that will contribute to the resilience, and indeed being open is an important element, and to have shared purpose that will all contribute to this.
Yep. Uh, so this brings me to my 1 billion vision. Can I share my 1 billion vision now?
Yeah, sure.
So, and the reason why I think my 1 billion vision is better than yours, because,
Okay.
because yeah, I mean, what I am interested in is how do we get 1 billion humans into this, what we're starting to call playfully regenerative OS, so regenerative society, regenerative economy, right? And the reason that I think if 1 billion people is only 1/8 of the population, right? That's what's 1/8? What's, I can't divide, 15, 16%.
12 and a half.
Sorry?
12 and a half.
Oh, thank you. Somebody did better at math than me. Uh, 12.5% of the population. I mean, that's like not a lot, right? Uh, but I think it will be massively meaningful in terms of, I mean, fundamentally changing human society, right? And I would like to rather place the big dream and center the big dream on an outcome and an impact than on an input. Because, like 1 billion sounds a lot. We work turned like 43 billion or something, or 23 billion into just like went like this, like Tesla drops and like this 1 billion disappears off the books. It seems like a lot, and then it can go very, very quickly, right? So it's only a few pallets worth of money, right? Because that's how much, that's what the US Army took to Iraq, right? They took a few pallets. They were bringing in money by the pallet worth. So it's pretty easy to set it on fire. And, what is the outcome, right? Bill Gates has spent tens of billions, and I am not an expert, but I know there is much criticism of the outcomes that he's generated. So I think rooting ourselves in an outcome and figuring out how to work to that outcome is actually more generative and regenerative than rooting in how much money we deployed, which is more old school. But yeah, I mean, how do you like this idea? You're younger than me, so it should be easier for you. 1 billion humans in the regenerative economy society.
Yeah, I definitely like this perspective, and just to reflect back on the 1 billion euro, I in a way feel it's also more of a way to draw in attention, and it's like a carrot on a stick, because we're also money focused in this world. So I think it's a great way to pull in attention, and then from there we can start bringing in this story of impact. And yeah, I like the 1 billion people. Um, one specific thing I would like to add there is this inquiry in like what would a regenerative lifestyle look like? Because I think that's really the question here. Like, how can we live regeneratively and sustainably on this planet? Um, I recently did an inquiry with ChatGPT on this question, like if everyone on this planet would like have access to an equal amount of land surface, like the footprint, like what their ecological footprint is, how would it equate to a financial budget? And of course, there's a lot of nuance to it, but there is quite a linear relationship between the amount of money we spend and the amount of resources we use. It's not one on one, and especially in richer countries where you have more services, etc., it's more decoupled. But there is a range, and I got a for the Netherlands. I think it was between 7 and 17,000 euros a year, which is like not a lot.
That,
um,
oh, that's how much you would have if you were going to live within the donut.
yes, exactly. So, I mean, if you would take an average or something like a regenerative basic income would be 1,200 euros a month. It's not a lot of money. So, but I think it's a fair way to start thinking about, how to live on this planet with, if we would say we have 8 billion people like we have today. Um, and so to model a regenerative lifestyle, I think that would be a very interesting um, goal as well, of like what would it mean to live with 1 billion people regeneratively and bringing them into this regenerative economy and OS. I think that's a means to do it, right? A means to reach that goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question. I'm looking at it through the technology lens of building the software that supports these ways of working. Uh, I am So here we're going into area which I'm not so much of an expert, but I think what we need to do. So I think because some of what you're talking about is the post-growth thesis, or not post-growth, degrowth, right? which I think is the world's worst marketing term. Because you're trying to tell people it's going to be less stuff, like you're going to have to degrowth and da da da, which is like, it's an aesthetic, religious kind of thing. Instead, you could be telling people you'll have more time to spend with your family, you have more free time, more time in nature, time for your hobbies, like a chance to regularly meet your neighbors, right? You will have time for your spiritual pursuits. It's the same story, it's just
Yeah.
told a fundamentally different way,
Yes.
right? So, maybe you don't need 7 pairs of jeans, and maybe two will be enough, and you'll mend them because you paid a lot of money for them to a local person, right? But then you'll love them because you actually know the person that made those jeans, and you'll feel much richer and much better. 'Cause maybe it's even your friend that made that pair of jeans, and you have a profound relationship with that. Maybe you went to the shop and you picked up the fabric yourself. So on paper, you will have less stuff. Emotionally, and in terms of wealth of your life, you will be much richer, right? So what we need is a profound cultural change of what we value. And I don't think this means that we will feel poorer.
Not at all.
We will feel richer because we will value things in different ways, and we will have more of the kinds of things which we know we tend to value, which is things that we have some connection with, of where they came from, of or who made it, or whatever, right? So yeah, that's why I don't like this story of like, oh, you'll have 17,000 euros. Well, I mean, that's horrible. Even in Portugal, I spend more than that on my lifetime here with my wife, and I don't even pay rent, right? So, right, we need to look at it holistically, and I think tell people that you're actually going to have better and more valuable lives. You're going to go back to being more human because maybe you don't need to be working 12, 18 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I totally agree with you, and I think I was just sharing this as some kind of a reflection on where we are as humanity, especially in terms of how many resources we currently use and the shift that's required. And I totally agree. I don't think that it's a step back. I think it's actually bringing us closer to the things that we really want. And yeah, the society that we have created has created a lot of fake needs and a fake fulfillment of these needs. Because if you look at what are our true needs, it's food, shelter, and companionship. It's something I've heard in multiple places, but that's the only things we really need.
Wrong, wrong,
Oh,
wrong.
sorry. What did I miss?
This is what people get completely wrong, and it's that whole Maslow's pyramid bullshit, which has been, we need meaning.
Yes.
And actually, if you look at people's lives, if you look at, the Viktor Frankl example of the camps, or even people going to war, or all of this, we will go without food, shelter for a long time if we have deep meaning. I'm not saying we should, right? I'm not saying we should give people religion instead of food and shelter, but it's really important that this purpose, and it connects with the start of our conversation, right? You can have infinite money, but it doesn't make you infinitely happy if you don't have purpose and meaning. And it's not true that meaning only starts mattering when you have a full belly. I think it's not true at all. And we can pull up the research, but I think it's been fairly well documented. So
Yeah.
sorry to
I
interrupt you, but I think it's an important.
yeah. I agree with that as well. And for me, actually, companionship that entails a lot of that. I think there is a lot of meaning in companionship and the people around, because always meaning and purpose comes from doing things for other people, being in service. So yeah, it sounds very simple, but for me, companionship actually has a lot of all these elements. But I agree with you that
I would
meaning is
phrase it as belonging.
belonging. Yeah.
Because
Hmm.
companionship, at least in English, it can mean like I have a wife, a boyfriend, or something. And
Yeah.
belonging is much bigger because it's family, it's tribe, it's religion, it's the place,
Yeah.
it's the universe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Connection and belonging.
Yeah, and regarding to Maslow, it's interesting. I recently saw a post on LinkedIn also about um, how Maslow lived with one of these Blackfoot tribe, I think Blackfoot tribe, and there he got a lot of learnings that somehow didn't translate to our Western society. But there he figured actually that self-actualization was at the core of everything, of community life, and then the rest came from that. And so we're missing a lot of that, and I feel this pyramid is basically flipped um, when we step into this regenerative lifestyle that is all about connection and community and relationship.
Yeah. And which actually I think since there'll be other people watching, we should have put this disclaimer at the start. And well, I'll speak for myself, but for me, when I say 1 billion users or billions of euro, pound, dollars, or whatever, it's not because I want to get rich. I mean, I would like to be a little bit better off than I am now, but for me, I just want bigger toys to play with and the ability to have a bigger impact in the world, right? And to work and to be able to have the people around me be paid an honest wage. So it's not for me that I need to be rich, right? I don't have children, not leaving a legacy, gonna die soon enough. I don't need to have a gold-plated grave. Uh, but I would like to be in a place where I'm able to impact the flow of large resources towards those, that beautiful future that you have in the back of your Zoom, right? Yeah. So for me, it's not like I need to get rich, I want to build a hedge fund to make lots of money. I don't need much more money. I have enough pairs of jeans and shirts. But I would like to be there to be able to also, yeah, work with people that are working at the biggest levels of impact. That's me. How about you? You just want to get rich. Come on, be honest.
Yeah, I want that billion for myself. Well, actually, I don't know. What would it be like? I really don't know. What would I do with it? Well, that's basically what I'm doing here, like pioneering these pathways for funding to flow to the things that I care about and that can create a world where all life can thrive. Um, and when it comes to meaning and purpose, related also to these needs that I mentioned, like I have noticed that when it comes like what do I need money for, it is really just for money for food, shelter, and well, companionship comes from it. But if I have food and shelter, then I and maybe some money for travel, then I can fully live my purpose and find meaning by contributing to the things that I care about. And that's in a way what I'm doing with my life. And maybe that's also um, yeah, maybe more personal reason why this fundraiser is important for me is because a lot of the work that I do and that we do is not funded. Where, I mean, maybe we're wrong, but I clearly think it's necessary. It's very, very needed in this world. And I'm just surprised that this kind of work is not funded. Um, so I think it's also a call to bring in more resources, and I think many people are interested in this work because, like, you can attest there's a lot of meaning and purpose and belonging to be found in this. Like I'm overflowing with all of that. and so there's a lot that we can give and can bring, and I think everyone will find purpose and meaning and belonging once they start contributing to a cause they deeply care about, and that's built on relationship and care and connection with nature and each other. Um, so I think that's for me also the maybe a deeper motivation, like how can we make this kind of work viable or more viable and make it a viable alternative for more people to step in, because it comes currently with a lot of uncertainty and um, I know I'm relatively young. I don't have a family, so for me it's more easy to take the risk that I'm taking. But if you have a family and kids, it's very tricky to make this step, to step into the unknown with financial uncertainty, and like how are you going to take care of your family? And I understand that, and yet I hear a lot of people that want to make this shift, they want to contribute, but they don't know how and where and how to know that they're taken care of. I think that's really my deeper motivation, how to create the conditions that more and more people can start doing the work that they feel deeply called to do and become part of the change and build a viable alternative for the mainstream work rhythm and life and system.
All right, I like it. So now let's make it happen. What is your roadmap? What are your needs? How can I be of assistance?
Nice. Okay, I like your grounded focus. Um, I don't know if I have a clear answer to that yet, but I do feel I'm getting close to a point where I'd like to start a co-creation phase of about 6 months, um, in which I like to bring together different stakeholders, both funders um, and potential projects to fund, and co-stewards for designing the foundation and a blueprint for how such a funding ecosystem can work. Um, and I think for this, I like to have connections with the stakeholders that fit into this group of funders. So it can be family offices, it can be investors, it can be philanthropists, foundations. Get them on the table and help them design um, what such a funding ecosystem can look like and how it can also match their needs. Um, because I see a lot of the different puzzle pieces, and I think yeah, by bringing these together, we can accelerate a lot of funding and pioneer and prototype new ways of funding that are more interesting, more exciting, more effective. Um, so yeah, that's where I'm at. And I have also learned over the past months that this is a very emergent vision, and it's kind of evolving and growing, and it gets shaped by interactions with people that I have. Um, and yeah, I feel like I'm at a point of harvesting feedback and bringing key stakeholders and also co-stewards. I feel like I really would love to anchor this by having 1, 2, 3, ideally 6 to 12 co-stewards like coherence with who I can really anchor this, because me being by myself, it's it's nice, it's okay, but I love working together with people and I want to get out of my own bubble with this. I want to get this out into the world and do a reality check and see whether this makes sense and get some partners involved that have relevant puzzle pieces for making this happen because this thing is bigger than me and I see myself as yeah, as a steward of this vision and simply taking the steps to bring it into the world, and that's sometimes scary and vulnerable, and I have no clue where this is going, but I'm doing my thing, and I think this conversation is an important part of that.
Cool. I love it. Sorry, I'm doing my sustenance needs taking over in parallel, but I
All
have to
good.
manage this conversation. Uh, so I think, yeah, I mean, I think you need to figure out how to tell the story in a way where it becomes more and more powerful. So I think you're fully spot on with the conversations and what you're talking about. I mean, certainly it's not ready yet, but I would invite you to use coherence and maybe, invite 6 7 people and run a coherence on the idea, inviting the funders and others into the conversation, right? And shake the universe, use coherence as a way of shaking the universe and building out the story. And also, that's been I always said it before, I don't know where I learned it, but I really discovered it with the gathering. It was only after I explained it to 200 to 300 people that I really understood and I was able to articulate it in a way which was compact and engaging.
Hmm.
So creating the conditions to give yourself the opportunity to explain the idea to 300 people who matter is a key goal.
Hmm.
So, and then also inviting people to co-steward, right? This my big learning has been is that teams are hard to build, especially when there's no initial funding and it's not a job. So I really believe that inviting people into something that's time bound is much easier for both sides
Yeah.
because it's easy for somebody to say yes. And then it's also when the project ends, if things are going well, of course you continue going together. If things aren't going well, and that could be their culture fit or somebody gets busy with something else, easy, no problem. You just move on. You don't have to fire anybody or kick them off of the team. So starting things with a beginning and an end is good. I don't know, 6 months seems a lot. I would do something faster first.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe do like a visioning phase first, which is 1 to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just because, like the world is fast, everybody's lives, and even committing to something to 6 months is a big deal. A quarter is kind of more realistic. Also, if you're doing the visioning or the initial phase, would you really get so much more value out of 6 months versus 3 months? And definitely sustaining energy in something for 6 months is much that's not being paid because I presume the first thing is not going to be funded. It's much harder than sustaining it for 3 months, which is like, okay, it's cool, I like you, I like the idea, let's sprint.
Mm-hmm.
So I would consider that. And then really as part of this visioning or the initial process, really start searching both for the so what you need is a team, co-stewards, partners, right? Can you get aligned partners? And really, for this to take off, I believe you have to get one of the systemic investing orgs to become your, partner advisor, da da da. There's Tonic, Twist, Transcap, Top Tier Impact, and Fest, I think a bunch of others. Uh, and then, yeah, if you can get, this is the kind of thing, if you can get a few, and then if you could get a dozen of these kind kind of organizations, Ashoka, Catalyst Now, like some of those international organizations that have a reputation and bring together serious people, then you'll do it.
Yeah, nice. I like that. Thank you. And yeah, I also feel my one of my key focuses now is to start building relationships with one of these. I have been focusing now on these networks of investors. There's Yes We Trust. There's indeed TTI. Elliot Bayev has a network. What's it called? There's a bunch of those. Yeah, but at least I want to have on the table the people that have connections with the people with money, either investors or philanthropists or family offices. Like that needs to be included from the start so that we can design something that makes sense for them.
If you
Um,
could partner with one of those networks, then you're golden.
yeah, yeah. I like the idea of also using coherence. That was actually one of my thoughts, to do a coherence more specifically focused on this topic of funding. I think it will be both funding and like alternative economic models, regenerative finance, kind of that space. I think that would be a super cool one. I also think a shorter, uh, yeah, shorter sprint to start with. I think that's good. And then, yeah, practicing the story, of course, yes. And I'm also shaping still my ideas around it by having these conversations. So it's also kind of
Exactly.
evolving and emerging. Sorry.
And that's exactly why the more conversations with the right kind of people you can get in early on,
Hmm.
that will hugely accelerate your learning.
Yes. Yes.
And it's a good time. So I can tell you, I went to that Systemic Investment Summit in London, right?
Hmm.
My first one of all of these, and it was a really wonderful experience. I'm just kind of finger in the air, 2 to 3 trillion assets under management in Europe. So real meaningful money. Uh, and there was a beautiful vibe. And I described it to a number of people there, and they agreed with me. So it's not just me. I have been lucky in my life to have been there at the start of a bunch of different scenes. There was the rave scenes early 90s. And okay, the drugs are better now, the music is better now, the lighting is better now, but the experience was better then, because there was this sense of we're all participating in something new, this sense of discovery and freshness, right? And then in Japan, I think even like we've co-experienced this with Rebuild and the regenerative movement. There's been a sense of like we're part of something new and we're here and something is being born, right? You know the feeling I'm kind of trying to
Yeah. Yeah.
describe?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Totally.
And I had that feeling in London at that Systemic Investment Summit. It was the second one. And I ran this by a couple of people there, right? And these are people running big international organizations, billions of projects. And they were like, yeah, now that you describe it, it does have that feel. So there is a certain openness now, I think, for people to build relationships, to experiment with new ideas, and so on and so forth. And yeah, at the same time, I think there is a need for powerful news stories. And that's what I think you should focus on, is saying, like, look, I'm a young person here, I have a powerful news story. Don't try and figure it all out yourself, right? Because you will not become as good a fundraiser today as somebody that's been doing this for 40 years and they were born into the right families, went to the right universities, and they have golf regularly with people who invest billions on a coffee, right? But you can create a powerful enough story to get those people excited to want to be on your team and to help you with it, right? And similarly with the deploying, there's so many people working on new economic models, right? You don't need to figure them out. You just need to figure out who are the people that know the right thing, who you trust, and to bring them in.
Mm.
right? So this is the kind of thing, and this is also what I believe regenerative leadership is, right? I see my biggest goal in success as a leader, as a source, is when I'm in a room full of people much smarter than me, much better at getting this stuff off the ground, who are excited about the idea that I brought to them.
Mm. Yes. Thank you for that invitation. Do you need to go, by the way, right now? I see it's at the hour. Do you have another call?
So soonish, I need to drive my wife to the airport. But I think it's a good point. And for me, I mean, you're already helping me. You're helping me with coherence. I have my roadmap is we didn't talk about the venture
Yeah, I
family,
just
but
wanted to say, yeah.
for me, my roadmap is we do the coherence around the tech part in the fall, the bigger one, and we start bringing in together people building different parts of the regenerative economy OS software into a venture family. And hey, when you have 1 billion, hopefully you can invest in us a little bit too.
For sure,
Because
you're on top of the list.
tools, the tools are also part of the equation.
Yes, and I think things will develop hand in hand. I feel coherence is a beautiful place for me to be right now. And it already has like all the things I'm passionate about. And I feel this bigger fundraising and just thinking about how do we flow more resources into this regenerative work that's kind of a side project and it just keeps evolving and growing inside of me. And I aim to have more conversations like this to see who are the people that resonate with this and have key puzzle pieces to bring into the equation. And then we'll see how it's going to take shape. Maybe it's going to start with a coherence. Maybe it's going to flow differently. I don't know, but I'm here. I'm stewarding this. I know you're kind of on a similar thread, and I'm excited to keep exploring this and making this come to life and ground into this reality together.
Nice. Yeah, wonderful. Let's have fun with it. And the way it's about, I have both the answer, which is actually a question. The way to flow more resources is to get more people aligned into this story, to
Hmm.
create a bigger and more powerful shared story, which more and more people can say, yes, I want to be part of that story, or I see the story that I'm stewarding is actually part of that story.
Hmm.
So the storytelling and the communication around this positive, more beautiful future that we dream of is what it's all about.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, I think recording this and sharing this conversation is a good start, and all the conversations that we're having through coherence and publishing, I think it's a great way to bring this narrative, this new story to more people. So yeah, and thanks for being an example in that scene, and yeah, you're a big inspiration for me when it comes to narrative and storytelling. So yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for also making time for this. I had a lot of fun. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Yeah.